This is To Our Core with Katie Murray, and this is the place where we peel back our layers to uncover who we really are at our centre, at our core. And think of it as a chat with your bestie, the one who can make you laugh until your belly hurts, who is ridiculously unfiltered, and will lovingly call you forward to help you cut through the noise and get real with yourself. Around here, nothing is off limits, and we are mixing this up with equal parts humour and heart, so let's dive right in. Well, welcome back to the podcast. I'm super excited to bring this particular episode to you because I have a guest, and she was an absolute given for this particular episode because she has been a long-standing client of mine, and we have such great chats that I thought, why keep that to ourselves when we could be sharing it to the world instead? So just to make things confusing, her name is also Katie. So you've got two Katies on the podcast today. So welcome, Katie, to Our Core with Katie Murray. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Thank you so much for being willing to come on here. I know that it can feel sometimes for people like it's a bit daunting. And I did just say to you before we started, let's just pretend we're just having our usual chats, and it can go as deep as you want it to. And I just really, really want you and any other listener that's listening back to this podcast episode to just be able to gain the wisdom and the insight that you have in bringing your experience to the table, because sometimes people don't just want to hear Katie Murray talking all the time, and it's really great to hear another perspective. So thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for agreeing to be part of this experience. And I have got a feeling that this may not be our one and only session. So I'll see at the end whether or not it's been a traumatic experience for you and whether or not you want to come back on. But I see this as the first of many conversations. So in saying that, let's just get straight into it. When you think back about where you were at the start of your coaching journey, which would be 6 months now, yeah, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
What stands out most about that version of you when you started?
She was definitely in survival mode.
Mhm.
And I like metaphors
Mhm. I love
and,
metaphors too.
making scenarios, to understand feelings and actions. And if she was driving a bus and the bus was full of all, I guess, her shields and her armors, the one in the front seat riding with her was definitely, like very protective,
Mm.
um, really running on that, I guess, yeah, protect mode and
Mm.
defense mode. And my actions were probably a little bit, like living with me was probably like a bit of a dictatorship.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
um, that's where she was at. And I think, now that armor is probably at the back of the bus,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple things came up for me when I was listening to you talk then, and that is, first of all, you talked about protection mode or being like you needed to protect yourself. Do you know what it was that you were trying to protect yourself from?
I didn't then, probably.
Mm.
I was just acting out of, the beliefs that had come to me through my life.
Yeah.
Um, Now looking back at it, I was protecting myself from, fear of not being perfect, making mistakes, not being accepted. I was really trying to hold it all together, to maintain what I thought everybody wanted
Mhm. Yeah.
from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had anyone ever asked you to be that?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Isn't that funny how we often have this story that we carry with ourselves about needing to be what everyone else wants us to be, yet we haven't actually asked anyone what they want us to be. So we just are creating it from that place of protection and self-preservation, and often fear is running the show to that. The other thing that you said in that first response to my question was it was probably like a bit of a dictatorship in my house. And I'm wondering, when I heard you say that, and from our conversations, I know that you're probably referencing what it was like to live with you in the house. I'm wondering whether or not it also felt like a bit of a dictatorship internally with you in regards to how you treated yourself and the standards that you held yourself, and not just in the way that you engaged with other people.
Yeah, it definitely was. It wasn't a comfortable place to be.
Mm,
It wasn't happy and free, and it was a need for control,
mm,
and I definitely do haven't had a need, and thought that if everything was under my control and everyone did what I said, and including myself, like
mm,
I've now uncovered, I had a lot of rules for myself,
mhm,
um, that I just made up along the way, and reflecting on them, they're not required.
mm,
And by loosening that, like I'm definitely feeling a lot freer.
mm,
Um, it's been said that I'm more negotiable, like around time, I'm more flexible.
mhm.
Um, so that's starting to feel really good.
Yeah, amazing. And so, what do you think some of the biggest shifts for you in your thinking, in your behavior, in your sense of self that have occurred since you started coaching? Like, I'm hearing that you're saying loosening the grip on control and starting to question some of the rules that you've created for yourself, which, can I just say, we all have adopted rules that have come as part of our conditioning often, little bits and pieces that we've picked up along the way, very much on an unconscious level often. But we've just created this story about what life is meant to be like for us, and how we should show up in that. So I'm wondering if there are any other big shifts in terms of your thinking, your behavior, and your sense of self that have really changed for you since you started coaching with me.
I know I'm a lot kinder to myself now.
Hmm.
Um, and that came with loosening the grip on those rules. Um, I'm also a lot happier.
Mm,
I've really noticed I kind of wake up in the morning and I'm like, this is going to be a great day. And let it be known, I'm living the exact same life I was living 12 months ago. I
yeah.
still have the kids, I still have work, I still have my family. The environment I'm in hasn't changed. I have changed.
Mm, yeah.
Um, yeah, so there's like a bit of a pep in my step, and I'm really excited for the future. I know that we did some vision board work. And that has really helped me with work because it's given me purpose. It's
Yeah.
given me things to look forward to. It's opened the lid, things are possible. And I can want more. Um, so they're the big positives.
Yeah, that's incredible. And when you talk about, because you're both have been a client with me one to one, you still are. And in the one to one coaching, it's just for those people that aren't familiar with the coaching framework, it's just Katie and I just chatting, and working through whatever is currently happening for Katie in the here and now, and also doing some of that vision boarding work as well. So I've got a question about the vision boarding, but you're also part of the Self Sabotage Solution, which is the signature group program that I launched in January. And I'm wondering how that experience has been in terms of having one-to-one experience with me, and now adding that extra layer of group program to it as well.
The group program has been amazing. The first call I know I said to you, there was all these little faces on the screen and I'm like, "Wow, that could actually be each of my personalities without sounding
Mhm.
like a crazy person." I
Yeah,
really resonated with all of the women and everything that was shared, and it made me feel so at ease, like, "Oh, I am normal,"
yeah,
or whatever normal is.
yeah,
It's not just me. And these women, are, you know, in just so similar. So that's where I've really enjoyed the self-sabotage solution because it's taking the feeling of being so isolated and alone in
mm,
your own thoughts and bringing them out together.
yeah, and that was the sole premise for me wanting to create a group program, was to offer people community in that, because
Mhm.
a lot of people in one-to-one are like, "Why am I like this?" And I'm like, the picture is bigger than us as individuals, okay? There are so many people that are experiencing so many common experiences, and it's similar to like shame with it loving silence. You know, isolation loves to keep you believing that this is just a you issue and that there's something wrong with you, when I have that really foundational belief that none of my clients actually need fixing. We just need spaces to be able to explore and an opportunity to be able to have things reflected back to us, because I believe that my clients all have the answers and resources available within them. It just sometimes needs that additional lens and that supportive kind of space to be able to bring it out. And that's where your vision board, how different was that for you as an experience when you have thought about vision boards in the past? And then I started drilling down into all of the nitty-gritties of it to really create that really strong vision for you to cement into it, so that knowing the brain and how it works, and it loves things to be really specific and really clear, because then it adds an extra level of ease for it. How was that different for you when I was drilling down, compared to, like, you sending me the first draft, which was very pretty, can I just say, very pretty, however, missing Katie and you in that. And when I say Katie, I'm not referring to myself in the third person. I'm referring to you. Just to confuse the listeners, I'm referring to you, and your vision.
I mean, I've had vision boards on my phone before. I've had, pretty pictures up there before,
Yeah.
and it's not really taken off,
Mm,
because I haven't done that extra work behind it as well.
mm.
Um, so yeah, really zoning in and having time frames and dates and being really specific about the pictures that were on there. It's worked. I have a pink laundry, you know,
Yeah, the
and
pink laundry.
it's not even March, is it? No? It's
No,
like we did
the
this work in.
That's the thing, is, like, when the time frames are set down on these things, it's actually not about the time frame. It's about giving your brain something to go, "Okay, that's really clear. This is our priority. This is where our focus is." And then therefore we train our brain to see the opportunities for how that could come into being, as opposed to just, like, putting out this really vague, and I know yours were quite specific in regards to what you wanted done, but say you had have just said house renovations, it's so vague for your brain to actually latch onto that, and there's no emotional connection to that vision, whereas you knew you wanted a pink laundry and you wanted this, and this component of it. And so I think a space where you could actually talk through my questioning, kind of drill down into when, how, what would it look like? You know, how would it feel to walk into your bathroom and or laundry and actually be able to do, you know, your laundry in the space that you've created, that the vision that you've brought to life. And absolutely things accelerate then, because you've given a really, really clear path for your brain.
And alongside that, there was conversations around asking for what you want or communicating what you want to do. And so, I made the time to sit down with my husband and I
Mm,
said, this is important to me. And I said, why? So I, that's another thing that I've done more of is, voicing what I actually want or
yeah.
finding ways to, instead of just squashing it and being like, he's really busy, he doesn't need this stress. No, I'm gonna put it out there because otherwise it will never happen, and then I'll feel sad and I'll keep looking at my ugly laundry, and then, you know, that's not good.
Yeah, yeah. And what stories were you telling yourself about keeping that information to yourself? Like, not asking for what you want, he's busy, all of those kind of stories. When actually, when you facilitated that conversation, look where we are in February and the laundry's done. And
Yeah,
FYI, I want pretty pictures of the pretty laundry. Thank you very much.
they're coming, they're coming. Yeah, look, it was the busy story. I love the busy story. Back when I started with you, busy could have been my middle name.
Yeah.
And what we've learned, or I've learned, you knew, is that
Well,
it's a
we learned
belief.
together. We learned together, by the way.
We do. Busy is a belief that I was, like that belief string was being pulled and I'd have the thought of my laundry and I'd even say I was too busy to do it. Like,
Mm,
I don't have time for my own designs. I need to worry about my clients' designs.
mm,
Why would I sit and work on my project when that doesn't make me money and I could be working on, their project that's a paying job. So
mm.
there was so much noise in my head around it, that was just squashing it.
Mhm. Yeah. So what do you think, what moments, insights, conversations felt like real turning points for you? And it doesn't have to be just about the laundry, but, anything that's really stood out for you in regards to, wow, I felt a distinctive shift here for me.
I think one of the big things came from the self-sabotage solution,
Mhm.
and I think it was the people-pleasing, um, session,
Mhm.
and it was about taking a pause. And that then for me, I thought, "You know what? I need to take a pause." Not so much for me when I'm talking or answering people because that doesn't really, present as too much of a challenge for me. It was more in my own thoughts. I need to pause myself.
Mhm.
And then when I pause myself, I can think about the thought that just came and I can think, is that really serving me now? Is that an old thought? You
Mm.
know, can we, scrap that one and can we think differently this time? And one of the biggest things I try and do is say, what if it turns out better? Like, because I can catastrophize till the cows come home. I am
Can't
fantastic
we
at it.
all? Can't we
Yeah.
all?
Yeah. And so it's really just that pause for that stop and catch and change, which is what you say. I think there's
Mm.
another word in there, is there?
Catch, challenge, and change. Yep.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. So that's 100% been a really good strategy for me.
Yeah, great. And how did that challenge the busy story? Because pausing is an interruption to the busyness, isn't it? If you're taking account. Now, the examples that I was giving were quite broad in regards to the people pleasing unit of that self sabotage solution group program. And it looked at how we often define people pleasing as like saying yes when you mean no, but it's so much broader than that and how it shows up. And for you, it's not necessarily about the pause in responding to a client or needing to find the right words. It's about giving yourself permission to pause. And how did that come or rub potentially up against that busy narrative that you've created, that busy equals productive, which equals worthy, which equals safe?
I don't know that when I started coaching with you, I would have been capable of that pause then.
Mm,
Um, so now that I'm understanding beliefs, because I didn't get it
mm.
when people would talk about your beliefs. I think I was quite like black and white about it. Like, do you believe in God? Or,
Yeah.
like I really was really literal
Mhm.
with it. And now that I've started to understand it better, I can spot it and stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Or
busy
you can
Katie.
spot it and emphasize it, because not all your
Yeah.
beliefs are holding you back. Not all of your beliefs are keeping you small. There's a belief in you that is actually really strong, which says, I get to have whatever I want. And I've heard you say that before. Like, I'm not going to limit myself in regards to my capacity. However, we started seeing some differences in your behavior compared to that belief of, I get to have whatever I want. I've just got to work hard for it, was one story. And then the other one was, I'm too busy, was impacting like that. But so you were having belief kind of counter wars. Like, I get to have whatever I want, but I'm too busy to actually go after what I want. And so being able to decide which one supports you most and how can you loosen the grip or the power that the other conflicting beliefs unconsciously, where they're starting to interrupt or sabotage your desire to actually fulfill that I get to have whatever I want belief. Whether or not there was any friction at all between that pause, like internally how it felt in your body when you were starting to practice that,
Yeah.
and that story of busyness.
I guess when I was starting to practice it, the story of busyness, when I was trying to pause, was getting very loud, like almost screaming at me. Whereas now, when I pause, it's a bit more of it's like a whisper.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like strengthening a muscle, I guess.
Mhm.
The more I practice it, the quieter the beliefs that aren't supporting me are becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And understanding that those beliefs were always created from a desire of protection. It doesn't
Yeah.
I don't think like your brain is not consciously thinking, "I'm doing this to sabotage you." It's like, "I'm doing this because it's familiar." Like, even that dictatorship that you were talking about or that desire to have control, it was coming from a very well-intended place in you in wanting to really hold on to the protection and safety that at one point in time, that control may have been really beneficial for you. So it's not a desire to, like, label beliefs as good or bad. It's just, do I still need them? Are they still the most supportive thing to get me where I want? And similarly, when you were talking about, I didn't really get beliefs, I didn't really understand what it meant. I thought it was just kind of like, do you believe in God? That same level of friction or uncertainty can come up for people when I ask them, what do you stand for?
Mhm.
Because a lot of people just, like, shit themselves and go, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Are you talking about my political views or, like," and I'm just like, what is so important to you that you're non-negotiable on? And then how can we ask that question about, and does that get you to where you wanna be or achieve the things that you want to achieve or feel that sense of happiness and lightness that you want to? Or is it something that you no longer have to stand on anymore?
Yeah, and I think something else that comes to mind that was really helpful early on in our coaching together was knowing that, I'd say I'm a control freak, and now I don't say I am,
Yes.
that's handy, change of language. Also, control isn't always a bad thing. Like you would say to me, that when it's used to your detriment or
Mm,
too much
mhm,
or, so I didn't have to come into coaching and stop controlling everything. I didn't have to let go of everything or of how I am or who I am. It was just about monitoring when it was too much.
mm.
So that was a really, I guess, gentle way of coming into the change.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that can apply to everything. So people that come to me and are like, "Oh, I'm a classic I am," so it's an embodied identity statement. I am a classic people pleaser. And then when we're looking at that, it's they talking about really kind gestures. They're talking about positive desires to please other people. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like kindness, the world needs more of. And doing like really beautiful gestures for other people, you're never going to get critique from me about that. And also, if it's at the detriment of yourself, if you're putting yourself at the back of the queue every single time in order to be able to make sure that everyone else is top of the rung on the ladder and you're just still like on the bottom step because you just keep letting people climb over your shoulders, that's when it can become limiting or problematic. And it does not mean that you have to eradicate kindness from your life in regards to how you engage with other people. It's just about how can you measure kindness in a way that ultimately the kindness is shown to you too, or you first, so that you can give more out of your cup in order to bless other people and give them the same, you know, love and care and compassion that you give to yourself, not at the detriment of yourself. Yeah. So what
Yeah.
strengths have you uncovered or reclaimed along the way through the last 6 months of coaching, whether that's through the self-sabotage solution and that group kind of container or whether or not it's one-to-one? What strengths have really stood out for you as reclaiming or uncovering?
Strength is a funny word for me.
Tell
You
me
know
about
that
that.
because
Tell me about that.
I see, yeah, only because of my answer. I think that the strength that I've gained would be my vulnerability that's coming through.
Mm.
And see, I don't really see how you put strength and vulnerability in the same word, in the same
Okay,
sentence, sorry. So
okay.
you can though, because I just did.
You can, and I'll absolutely talk about that in a minute, but I wanna hear your take on it first.
I think, yeah, being vulnerable was something that would not happen often for me at all. I had no need for it, no reason for it. Um, and what I'm learning now is that it softens me and then it opens me up to better situations and better circumstances. Vulnerability is probably going to be my new strength or is
Mm.
going to be my new strength.
Yeah.
Uh, and like I was saying before about the bus, vulnerability can sit on the bus and strength can sit on the bus. And I'm driving the bus and I can grab whichever one I need when I need it. I don't need to feel like I'm in protect mode all the time. Protect can still be there. There's enough seats on the bus for all of those things, so
Yeah, yeah, and not defining one as good or bad or anything like
yeah.
that. Um, the way that I talk about my strength, which literally the word is tattooed on my ankle or my foot, and I've talked about in episode 1 about my, evolution of what strength meant and looks like for me in my life. But really when I'm talking about strength being vulnerability, I'm talking about the fact that what is the strongest act, the most courageous act, the most bold act in my life is to be myself. If we're looking at strength from that perspective, and we're looking at the boldest, courageous act that we're ever going to do is to show the world who we are and stand in that, then it takes strength to do that. It takes strength to be able to say, here I am, I'm Katie Murray, and there's going to be parts of this world and people in this world who I'm not their jam. Like I might make their skin crawl. And also, if I'm not, if I'm performing all the time or trying to control other people's perceptions, which, I've talked about with you in regards to might sound harsh, but people pleasers are master manipulators because we're actually trying to control someone else's perception of us. And actually, if I take away that need to control and I take away the desire to try and manipulate people's perception of me, and I just say this is who I am, and part of that is going to be really vulnerable because I'm exposing myself, then that's going to take a lot of strength in order to stand in that, particularly in moments of critique, in particularly when you're in audiences where they might not agree with you. And that's not about being inflexible and being like, well, this it's my way or the highway, this is it, or even hiding behind the defense of this is just who I am, because who I am today might not be who I am in a week. And that's vulnerability in itself. By saying there's some things that I'll probably always stand by, and other times there might be experiences that illuminates a new truth for me, and I'll be vulnerable in that too, that what I say today stands true for me today, and then I might know more in the future that allows me to respond in a different way. So that's my definition of what strength and vulnerability, and how they're not even on different seats on the bus, they're all just arms around each other, like we're all welcome here. And, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but there was a voice note today. And you know how I always listen in very intently to the language that you use and all of my clients use, because it tells me so much about the unconscious beliefs. And we were talking in that voice note about emotions. And in that you were like, like a crazy woman. That like you're like just that statement. And that statement to me illuminated for me, is there a belief there that if a woman shows emotions, a lot of them potentially, that they could be perceived as crazy, unhinged, unstable? And so that's the benefit of coaching, in the respect that just having a mirror back to some of the statements that we throw away like flippant comments, they're actually really big cues or clues for us about what our beliefs are, and therefore the rules that we create about them. So if you've got an unconscious belief that if I show too much emotion, particularly ones that potentially I've tried to hide about myself in the past, like anger or sadness or vulnerability or fear, if I show all of me in that, and as part of that experience and our human experience of life, if I show all of that to someone, then they might think that I'm unstable or I'm, not all okay. I'm not all there. And therefore, how that impacts you on actually being able to show up and show emotions to other people can all be from that little seed that says, I don't want anyone to think that I should be sent or contained within Looney Tunes, and that I am not okay. What are your thoughts when I feed that back to you?
Yeah, there was definitely a strong, kind of narrative in my head, um, quite a few years ago. I was on some medication for anxiety and depression,
Mm,
and it kind of became my identity.
mm,
The behaviors that I, as like the emotions that I showed when I was really struggling. and it kinda got connected to then the medication. Like, and it was like, "Oh, have you had your medi today?" If I was showing some emotion. So I definitely personally got really confused about emotions and where they belong and where they have a place and what's, something that I need help with and something that I'm just being a human being and in a scenario and I'm upset because I'm upset, not
Yeah, and
because of
allowing
anything else.
yourself to have the full range of our emotions
Yeah,
because, like, society very much glorifies the good ones or good
yeah,
ones in inverted in inverted commas in terms of, like, oh, you can show as much happiness or joy as you want. And in saying that also, we have some rules around that. Like, don't be too happy. Don't be like, wow, she's a lot or she's too much.
yeah,
Or like, does she ever, like, that's fake. Does she ever have a bad day? Like, there's so many rules and conditioning that we receive and messaging about, like, let's just be measured in all domains of our emotion. And so it can be really confronting for people when they see someone really happy, even or angry about something. It's like, "Oh, just taper that down a bit." Like, just, like, just keep an even keel, and that then suppresses us from actually feeling a full range of emotions. And I really hear through a lot of my clients and a lot of conversations that I have with people, them forming an identity around that, and whether it's like my ADHD or my anxiety or my depression or and it's like so embodied as opposed to a label or a diagnosis that allows you to understand yourself better without it becoming you. Yeah?
yeah. And that's definitely, that's how I feel it happened for me. I definitely became it. And then I flipped like you know, full flip and kind of shut down all the emotions. I was like, well, I'm not suggesting everybody should get their own doctor advice, but I came off my medication because I was like, I'm not having that as something people can, say something about anymore and got help in other ways. But I shut down
Hmm.
completely. And so
Yeah.
now, years later, I'm like, the other day I said to you, like, I let sadness out. So,
Yeah.
I'm really starting to kind of relearn that no, it doesn't make you crazy. It doesn't make you a depressed person that needs medication in my scenario. It's just actually an emotion
Yeah.
that you can have whenever you want to have it, you
Yes,
know?
that's right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can choose how you respond instead of reacting to that. So when you express sadness, you met yourself with compassion rather than criticism. Like, I
Yeah.
can be sad about this. This has made me feel sad. And also, the evidence that you're storing in your brain by giving yourself that compassion is, I felt that emotion and then the whole world didn't explode on me or my whole life didn't fall apart because I allowed myself to have that opportunity without critique, without judgment, without telling myself that I need to pull myself together or stiff up a lip or, whatever conditioning that you have had in the past about how you should be. And instead you just sat with the emotion. So, on that, tell me what you're most proud of yourself over the last 6 months in working with me in your coaching.
I think initially the thing that I am the most proud of is actually trusting you.
Yeah.
I really trusted you. And for I guess the first few sessions, I just went along with what you said, uh, not to agree with you, more that I tried what you said.
Mhm.
Your strategies. I took them on board, and even though in my head I'm like, ugh, this won't work. I probably even rolled my eyes at you, no doubt.
Yeah, were a few
Um,
times.
yeah. you know, thinking that's impossible. I was also though, I've committed to this. I want this change. So my only choice is to trust Katie
Mhm.
and see if she can take me there. Or I've, taking myself there with you. Um, because that was really hard. That was really hard for me to let go. And there have been moments where I have been really vulnerable, and that's hard as well.
Mm.
Um, So and I'm so pleased with the outcome from doing that.
Yeah.
Even if I was, faking it till I made it in those first few sessions, it's well worth it.
Yeah, and
So
you talk about, like, I have no choice but to, like, I've invested in this and I've got no choice but to give this a go. And I just want to challenge that a little bit because you did have choices. So I never believe in just one choice. You had multiple choices. You could have continued to invest in this experience and completely deleted, ignored, distorted, generalized, whatever strategy I gave you, and you're like, "Yep, no worries. I am not gonna fucking do that." Um, and also you had the choice of, I can choose differently for myself. Like, what I've tried before, this pattern that I've kept myself has led me to the point of seeking help here. And so I either hold on rigidly to those patterns, um, and I just convince myself that I'm doing some work here with you when I'm not. I'm actually just giving up an hour of my time once a fortnight to listen and to have questions asked of me, and I will just say whatever I need to say, and then I'll just go back to the same patterns. Or I could choose right now to say, I am gonna be open to something different, and I can be like, some of my clients are absolutely skeptical when they come in, and that's okay. That's just your brain going, "Let's stay in the familiar, let's stay in the known, let's just do what we've always done." However, they also can come in with a healthy amount of both skepticism and a willingness to go, "And I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm willing to try something different." And so that might lead really well into my next question is, what challenged you the most during this process, and what did it teach you about yourself?
it would be, yeah, it would be the trusting in the change that was the most challenging. And I think learning that, and back to when you were saying it's okay to still have control in your life. It's okay to, protect yourself when you need to, when the lion's chasing you, but when you're at home, maybe not so much. Um, Knowing that it was still okay to have those parts of me made it all a lot easier to loosen the grips
Mhm.
across the board.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so how did you show up for yourself even when it was uncomfortable or uncertain for you? So when you were, like, rolling your eyes at me and you were like, "Yeah, that ain't gonna work. You don't know me. That's not gonna work." Um, Yet you did actually still show up for yourself. So how? How did you navigate that experience of, this is uncomfortable, she's stretching me, she's asking me questions about beliefs, and I don't even know what she's talking about, and this feels really uncertain for me. How did you manage to still show up in that experience and keep coming back? Because you, for one thing I will say about you, is that you are a really great communicator. You are really committed to holding yourself to a high standard. And as part of that, that meant you showing up to all of your sessions, you leaning in even when you were like, and there's been times where you've absolutely said, I've wanted to postpone my coaching calls with you, and I've wanted, because you might have had other priorities that were going on for you. And yet you still held yourself to a standard of, one, honesty about that, going, you almost got rescheduled this week. But you didn't. You showed up. And so and there was also a whole nother conversation that we had one day where you were really under the pump for some work stuff. And I'm like, what do you want to do? What's most supportive for you? And you're like, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, what do you want? Like, we went back and forth for a good 20 minutes in messages. And I refused to be the author of your life in the decision making that you're doing. And it was also a great invitation to you, wanting you to step into that self leadership of going, actually, this time there is something that's really going on. And I'm not sure if I came to the coaching session that I'd even be able to be fully present in it because of everything that's going on. And you did, you rose to it and said, I think that we need to change the schedule for coaching in regards to this particular week. So tell me, how'd you show up in those moments?
Um, you'll know this is true when I say it. Initially, I was showing up because I knew that if I was right and you were wrong, I could put my protective layer back on and go back to the life I had.
Yeah.
So I had backup.
Yeah.
You know, that took some of the scariness away from it, knowing that, oh, well, if my way's best, well, it's still there.
Yeah.
Um, it's just that I had this idea and this want and need for things to be better for me. And I really wanted it. And I'm also on a little bit of well, I've put myself on a bit of a time frame because I
Mm,
like a deadline.
yeah.
But, I've had friends go into, like, perimenopause and menopause, and they've gone in with unresolved things around emotions, around things that have happened to them in their life, and it's really thrown them, and
Mm,
it's really they've spiraled.
yeah.
People have lost friends, have had, marital problems. I'm like, I need to get ahead of this. I
Yeah.
need to do this work now. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I won't face any challenges. I just thought, crap, I need to really now's the time for me to work on this with you.
Yeah.
And so I guess I come back to that, when it does get tricky or it is easy to postpone, I'm like, no, 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 we need to do this before all of that other stuff hits so I
Yeah,
can,
because it's about building the resource kit, isn't it? About
yeah.
finding out it's not coaching is never about, "Oh, let's eradicate any single potential for challenge in your life," because, well, if that's the case, then I'm failing dismally because I still have plenty of challenges in my life. However, the resources, the strategies, my knowledge, my ability to reflect on what's going on, my ability to stay in my body as opposed to just staying stuck in my head. It allows me to respond in a different way to those challenges as opposed to being like, I want a life where there is no challenge. I mean, snore, like, as much as we say we don't want challenge, where is the ability to be like, wow, look at me. I got through that. And because of that experience, and it goes back to my belief around how is this happening for me instead of how is this happening to me? And I do advocate strongly for people having an element of control in their life because otherwise you sit in effect, which I've talked about on plenty of episodes. And that is that you sit as a passenger, like just as an absolute passive bystander in your own life where you go, "Oh, well, can't do that because of this," or "This happened to me, so that I don't have any choice here." And I invite all of my clients and myself on a daily basis to step into where do I have choice here? And in order to have choice, you have to harness the control that you actually have right now. What's available to me right now to make this the best, most supportive experience that I can have? And sometimes that is as simple as saying, I have the choice to put my hand up and ask for help. I have the choice to reach out and say, I feel like I'm falling back into the patterns that have kept me cycling the same cycles over and over again, banging my head against that brick wall. And so I just want to pick up on something that you said at the start of that spiel where you said, if I came into it and I was right and you were wrong, then that would be very protective for me. So let's talk about how attached you were to right and wrong and there being a very strong, firm line down the center. You are right or you are wrong. How did that feel for you when I started to challenge that there is no right, there is no wrong, there's only perception of what's right and wrong?
I couldn't. There's no gray.
Yeah.
Like, there's right and wrong, and it's my right or wrong. Um, and, like, my husband jokes about it, and it probably plays into my love for competence as well.
Yeah. I do
Um,
remember what you said to me after my first coaching call with you, the message you sent to me.
did I tell you you were very competent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said, "Wow, that was really powerful. You're competent." Like, and I think you said I went and spoke to my sister or a friend or someone, and I was like, "Wow, she's competent." And I knew for you that was the highest compliment because competence is such a high standard for you. And also, yeah, I'll take it. Thanks. I am competent. And also, it was that standard that you hold, like, across the board, really a lot towards yourself in regards to must be competent in all aspects of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. It was though that you were challenging me, and like, I work for myself, so I get challenged in the work that I do. The challenges I enjoy. I don't get challenged on my point of view very often because
Mhm.
in my job I'm the expert. Um, my husband doesn't challenge me. He's probably a bit scared.
Okay.
He's so cute,
Send him my
sweet.
way, I could help him.
Yeah. It's good to so I think, yeah, especially when you when you run your own business, you need someone to challenge you. You need different perspective, and you do need it from someone you respect.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why this is working because, yeah, yes, you are very competent. And I
Great.
do know that because I have had a lot of coaching.
Yeah.
Like I've done a few years with some different coaches. And this has by far been the most professional, where we've really stayed on task and tracked, everything's tracked really well. And yeah, I feel really confident and comfortable. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So while you've been going through that experience of determining my competence first, and then also, and then also like learning about how to navigate growth and change, how has this experience been different for you from some of the other experiences you've had in coaching in navigating that growth and change?
I guess the other times it's kind of been more around goal setting.
Mhm.
I don't feel that I feel like the work on myself has been more surface level. I f and I feel like I can definitely, if I set a goal, I can achieve it. I know that I'll die trying.
Mhm.
Um, and I think they saw that and just ran with that. And so we were ticking the goals, we were achieving things, and I was somewhat the same. I felt better because I ticked all these things off my list and my spreadsheet looked amazing.
Mm.
Not a lot changed though internally
Yeah.
around my thoughts and thought patterns and beliefs.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm here now.
And
To do
what I heard, like what I hear in that, is why do you need why do you need a checklist or something to tick off to feel good? Um, because that, we've talked a lot about um, productivity being tied to worth, and
Yeah,
so it's about how can you absolutely strive for what you want. Like I'm all in for a client that wants to go all in on themselves and also still feel worthy through every version that you've ever been without like shaming or discrediting or like, wow, I feel so illuminated now. I like this version of myself now. And I don't get to give any credit to every other version that's come before when she was just doing the very best that she could with the resources that she had. So,
yeah.
in looking at that, what inner resources or tools do you have now that you feel like you didn't have before?
I definitely have compassion for myself,
Mhm.
um, now and before when I was ticking off those goals or, you know, uh, I d I do have a sense of worthiness now. It's not strong.
Mhm.
There's still a long way to go on that, which actually makes me feel quite sad.
Yeah.
Um, that's oh, however, I know given how far I've come in the 6 months, I know it's going to happen.
Mm.
Like, I trust that it's going to happen, and I look forward to that. It's
Yeah.
just going to be a practice.
Yeah,
Um,
creating that new
yeah,
pattern. I
yeah,
talk to a lot of my coaching clients about this piece of timber that if you can imagine, we've got a marble running along the top of the timber and it's created a really well-worn groove, like and it's etched into the timber. And now you are creating a different story about what does worthiness look like for you. And it's not necessarily tied to the checklists or the other things that you may have in the past achieved. And when you look at sadness about that, what is the sadness in relationship to?
well, I'm sad that I don't just feel worthy,
Yeah.
if I was looking back at little Katie, child Katie, I'd be like, "Of course you are." And if I heard any of my friends say it, I'd be like, "No, just being in the room, like, with me, that's all I need from you." So I have that compassion for everyone else. It's just time now to give that to myself.
Yeah, make the muscle bigger and stronger and that
Mhm.
etch in the timber as you've picked up the marble and you've put it on another flat surface alongside that etched groove that you are creating a groove there now too, and that it looks different. And then I know you like a time frame, and I know you would like me to say by March the 31st of 2026, you are going to feel like you've got this in terms of worthiness. And also, it is an identity shift, and that can either happen really quickly, and also it takes embodiment of it over time by continuing to show up and practice and remind yourself that you don't need to achieve in order to be worthy, that you don't have to have awards, you don't have to have external validation, that you are worthy just because you exist. And in the same way you treat your children, in the same way that you treat your husband, in the same way that you treat your friends, where you don't ever question their worthiness. They were born into this world, and I've heard you articulate such love and compassion for other people. And so it's just about creating an identity that allows you to extend that back to yourself. And it's, maybe bad news to you, Katie, but it's a lifelong journey in reminding yourself, particularly in points of pressure or when you're busy or when you're feeling like you're under the pump or something's triggered, that you get to choose differently from how you have in the past for certain patterns that is likely to just keep you where you are when your vision is to be somewhere else. So, how do you know you've changed? Like, what evidence are you seeing or feeling in your day to day life that actually evidences this change? Like, I know you said happiness and light, you're feeling lighter. How do you see this showing up in the way that you interact with other people, or the way that you talk to yourself, or the way that you even schedule your week?
Yeah, definitely. So I asked for help this week,
Hmm.
just gone. There
Great.
was a scenario, yeah, where I wanted to go to work on the weekend. The children had two different things to get to, and usually I'd say, "Oh, I just can't go to work," and then I'd do the things for the kids, and then the whole time I'm doing them, I'm not present because I'm stressed about work, and I should have been there. Anyway, this time I thought, no, 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 I might ask if another parent could take one of my children, and then Ben will be home for the other scenario.
Yeah.
And it all worked out. It was
Yeah.
great.
Great.
It was hard,
Mm. Yeah.
and I felt really uncomfortable, and out of control on the day, because I wasn't the one doing the running around.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of anxiety there. It all worked out though.
Yeah. And so what's
Um,
the evidence you get to put in the bank now for that experience?
yeah, that I asked for help and it worked out better than I thought it would be. It
Yeah.
turned into a sleepover and everyone was happy.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So if you could give yourself, like your past version of yourself at the start of coaching, one piece of advice, what would it be? Give me your wisdom.
Trust you. Trust your coach.
Yeah.
And don't be scared and be as vulnerable as you can as early as you can be so that you can um start changing sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And how would you describe your growth journey in 3 words?
Ongoing,
Yes?
challenging
Yeah.
and beautiful. Yeah.
Lovely. And final question for you, and I thank you so much for your time with me today. If this chapter were a story title, what would you call it?
I wanted to do something really exciting for that question.
Yeah.
And all I've got is practice and repeat.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. I love that because that's ultimately what it takes in order to create change. And we often want change to be instantaneous in our lives. And we have to step up in choice and say the way that that happens, particularly for those ingrained behaviors or those ingrained coping strategies that have worked really well at some points in our lives, is to practice and repeat something else so that it has the opportunity to become automatic and just our default. So thank you,
Okay.
Katie, so much for being with me today, for sharing your story. I hope that this has been an equally rewarding experience for you. And I would love to have you back on the podcast at some time because we've kept it very above board today. But Katie the client, Katie here, and myself love to have a little sing off and love to. I mean, this morning we were just talking about the fact that Katie sent me a voice note which had an Eminem reference, which was rapping. And I'm not a rapper. So if we are going to continue this partnership approach, then you have to lift me up in areas that are not my calling. And you never know, guys. Next time I get Katie on this podcast, if she's willing to come back, there could be some very unhinged karaoke that occurs, and it's just, strap yourself in, because this is a ride, and we're here for all of it. So thank you so much, Katie. Any final parting words from you that you would like to share with either the listeners or myself, or as a reminder to yourself?
I never took a straight path nowhere. There you go.
Yeah.
That's 50 Cent.
I love that. So you should have done it in the actual voice.
I was going to, but I chickened out.
Oh, no. Okay, well, next time Katie's coming back and she's actually going to do a full performance. So I'll give her some notice and she can start practicing that. Practice and repeat. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I look forward to chatting to you in the next episode. Thanks for spending time with me today on To Our Core. If something landed in your heart or gave you a much needed giggle, consider sharing it with a friend who also may need this as a timely reminder. And go on. You know you want to. Give me a 5-star review so that this podcast can land in the ears of many, many more people. Because remember that life is too short to stay on the surface. Keep living, loving, and laughing all the way to your core. Go make life great. And if you want support around this, go to the show notes to find out more. Until next time, I'll meet you back here with more truth, laughter, and a whole lot of heart.